All right, we'll talk to you about how to make an if statement on here. So what I've got is just a simple pass fail, just looking at some students' grades. It's pretty simple to go through one by one and look at these and say whether they're passing or failing. But if we've got a really long list, say like the whole school, 1,000 students, we don't really want to go through one by one. We want to make a formula, drag it down, be done, let the computer figure it out for us. So let's stick with our 60s passing. Benita, yeah, she'd be passing. Charlize, that would be a fail, 56. So let's talk about how to make a formula for the computer to figure this out. And that's what's called an if statement. So you got to ask yourself, what are we trying to use here as kind of our scale? And 60 is our cutoff. So if the grade's higher than 60, they pass. If it's lower than 60, they fail. So the statement is simply equals if always do a parenthesis, and it's going to give you your three parts: logical expression, value of true, value of false. So logical expression, that's just the test. If our grade is bigger than 60, that's what we're testing. So all you got to do is just click on the number itself. Remember, use the click on it, so you use the cell name there, B3, and greater than 60. That's the test. Check and see if it's greater than 60. All right. So type in a comma, and now it goes on to value if true. So if that's true, we just want it to say pass. Now we can put words in here. If we do a quotation, and you can say passing, pass, however you want to do it. All right. So if it's bigger than 60, they passed. Another comma. So otherwise, if it's not, then they failed. So value if false. We'll type in fail. Oops. And make sure you close with the parenthesis, and that's your formula. So it came up autofill, and I usually check a few to make sure they look good, and those seem good. So there we go. So down here, I just have that laid out for you again. It's an if statement, equals if. You'll have three parts to fill in. First thing is, what are you testing? What is the number, the cutoff? If that's true, then here's what the computer does. If that test is not true, then here's what the computer does. So it either does one thing or another. All right. Now, sometimes you may want it to ask a couple questions. So let's look down here. Same students, and there's a trip coming up. And to qualify, they've got to be passing the class, but they also have to be in Spanish. If they're not in Spanish class, then it doesn't matter. So maybe they're got to be passing English or something. So we got two conditions. Are they passing? Because if not, they're out of running. They're not going on this trip if they're failing. And then if they are passing, are they in Spanish? So they got to do both things. All right. So what we'll do is we'll have an if statement. And if they're passing, then we go to another if statement. So your true piece in the middle here will be a second if statement. Kind of weird at first, but once you kind of run through the logic, it's not too bad. So equals if. All right, I want to check the grade first. If that is bigger than 60, and then we move on to comma, what do we do if this is a true statement? Well, if that's true, I want to check and see if they're in Spanish. So I'm going to say if again, parentheses. I'm starting a new formula. So if this cell right here, which is E16, this is kind of weird, but all you have to do is hit equals, and if you have a word, put it in quotes. It'll check for that word. So if that is yes, then I'm just going to say, then if that both are true, they go on the trip. So I'm just going to put trip in quotes here. If they are not in Spanish, then they don't go on the trip. So we'll say no trip. All right, and we'll close that up. So what I just said was, if they're passing, then let's check and see if they're in Spanish. If yes, good, they go on a trip. If not, they're not going on a trip. So here's the kind of the hardest part about the whole thing. This if statement right here, right in the middle, that was the what to do if they were passing over here. We've still got to wrap up. We've got to wrap up this statement. We got to tell the computer what to do if they're not passing the class, which is pretty simple. If they're not passing the class, they don't go on the trip. So just at the end, no trip to fill that spot in. And that should do it. So let's pull it down, make sure everything looks like it makes sense. Benita's passing and in Spanish, so good. Charlize is failing, so no trip. Frankie's passing this one class, but not in Spanish, so no trip. Failing, no trip. So they seem to be checking out.